But then I used it up again. She's from the church. So maybe one.
Every Sunday for a full Sunday.
Every morning is such a rush.
You must be yes, but
one particular element and getting something else.
We did try to
that is what is still there. That channel is still not sorted, so I want to get it. I was first trying to get parts. With the parts that looks so expensive, only board and not. Going forward, so the secretary is not here. It's not at all important. Yes, color is the never. Better is good, yes. Because of we have for thousands of years, that's a second. Once a revelation says none of the only secret.
Thank you. First, let me give you, but we are limited. How many Request everybody switch off your mobiles or put them on silent, please.
Religion invokes more emotion and passion than radical thought or logical thought. You need to shift. All of you have come here this morning. What delights me more than anything else is the fact that there are at least 3 or 4 members of mixed married couples. I would like now Rohinton to start the proceedings.
When it was some time ago, that with a very small but rather intense group, we had these Gatha classes at my home at Gitanjali Enclave. My brothers Rati was there, Jana was there, and the one person I miss the most is Niku Maneksha, who was perhaps the oldest and the keenest of the lot in trying to unravel the mysteries that are in these great texts. It is in her memory that I begin this class. She was a very fine lady. I miss her enormously. It is important before we embark on this somewhat long and arduous journey that a few fundamentals are first given to all of you. You must first know that this is an extremely ancient religion. And being ancient, its scriptures are in at least 5 languages. I don't know how many of you know that the Kasti prayer itself is strictly speaking in 3 languages. Many people say it's 2, but I think it's in 3. Because the Kemna Mazda prayer is directly taken from the Gatha, short of the last one. The Aura Mazda Khodai prayer is in Pahlavi, which is a completely different language, and which was the spoken language of the day during the Sasanian dynasty. I will be giving you a short primer on Persian history as well, to tell you where this dynasty fits in the timeline. And the Jasme Avangya Mazda prayer is in Avestan as opposed to Gathic Avestan. So it's a younger language, it's almost the same, but there are a couple of small differences. Interestingly enough, this prayer was put together by one of our greatest chief priests, a man called Adarbat Maraspan. Now, he happened to be the chief priest of one very great Sasanian ruler called Shapur II. Shapur II is perhaps the only king in history to have been crowned when in the mother's stomach. It happened like this. His father was Hormuz II, died early. Somehow or the other, the two sons that he left behind were overlooked. One was called Agar Narse and the other Narse. And they were overlooked perhaps with good reason because they were considered good for nothing. So the Queen Mother and the Regency Council at that point of time, little Shapur was 3 or 4 months in his mother's stomach, decided to call upon one of the chief priests. And one of the chief priests saw the lady, saw the stomach and predicted this would be a very great king, astrologically. Predicted first that it was a baby. And the imperial diadem, that is the crown, was actually placed on the mother's stomach and was crowned, so to speak, in utero. It was in this man's reign that this great chief priest formulated what we call our Kasti prayer. Now, before we go to the Kasti prayer and before anything else, I think it is important to give you a short background of our history, after which we go to our two basic prayers, Gatha and Asher, both in the Gathic language. One other interesting thing which I must tell you at the outset, when you read this particular translation, and I would exhort all of you to start reading it and keep reading it as we go along, because it will keep giving you different meanings, different senses. It will keep inspiring as you keep reading. One interesting thing is, you must remember that as Sir William Jones, a very great English judge, came to Calcutta in the 18th century, discovered this is, Avesta is, a part of what is called the Indo-European group or family of languages. Now, being part of this group, fortunately for us, we speak many languages today which are part of this group. English, Gujarati, Hindi. Interestingly enough, one clue to discovering what at least 20% of these words mean is their modern usage in these languages. Now you will find, for example, the word Garo Deman. I don't know if most of you are familiar with the Zoroastrian concept of what we call heaven. Both can be titrated into today's languages. Garo, Gavanu, song, Deman, domain. To give you an example. Like that, you have many little words, and in fact, you have a commonly used expression, Mutar, bis, which is used in the Gathas. Prophets always spoke with verb and always spoke with strong words because they had to ultimately revolutionize society. This is one interesting facet which you all keep in mind, because every time you read this, try and see whether a particular word fits something which is in modern usage. You'll find at least, as I said, 20%. Another very interesting thing, you will find that there are two miracles, according to me, which have happened. One miracle is that somehow or the other, what somebody said at least 3,000 years ago has come to us more or less intact. Second, the fact that what he says is completely relevant to live by today. Both these are amazing things. And I can tell you that thanks to philology, we are able now to decipher what is stated in the Gathas, basically through Rigvedic Sanskrit, because the language happens to be identical. There are a few inflections here and there which are different, but otherwise, if you go by a Rigvedic Sanskrit dictionary and translate for yourself word by word, you will get a completely authentic meaning of the expressions used in the other side. So, we also happen to live in an era where scholarship has provided us with this other great insight, so that we are able perhaps to divine what Zoroaster said far better than our forebears for at least the last 2000 years. Now, having said this, a short excursus into our history. As you know, our recorded history begins really with Cyrus the Great. But before our recorded history, we are told in the Shahnameh that there were two other great dynasties which existed before the Academians. First was the Peshdadanian and the second was the Kayanian. Now, it is in this Kayanian second dynasty that Kavi Vistas, who is spoken of in the Gathas, and who was the monarch who Zoroaster converted, ruled. So when you have references to Kavi Vistas and you have references to the Spitamma family to which Zoroaster belonged, this obviously belonged to an era way before 500 BC at least. We don't know exactly when, but we can say with some degree of confidence, way before. Another interesting thing, Zoroaster himself says that he is the first ever to have communed with one almighty creator God. This is another statement which is very interesting, because according to him, he was probably brought up as an Agnihotri. He says, I'm a Sotar, which is the equivalent of a Hotal, which is a fire priest in the old Rigvedic faith. The Rigvedic faith, as most of you know, again was an ancient, I wouldn't even call it faith, it was really various statements made by persons who considered themselves in communion with forces other than our own. And the Rigveda itself is divided into 10 mandalas or books, spanning at least 3000 years. Now, the Rigvedic faith is something which believed basically in nature worship and in the worship of certain persons who became so powerful that they got deified after death. For example, you will find Mitra and Varun, who are both upholders of the ethical orders, referred to as Asuras in the Rigveda. Asura and Ahura are interchangeable, and they only mean Lord, somebody who is worthy of worship. So, Mitra and Varun are called Asuras, that is, persons who are lords, worthy of worship, because they uphold contract. Basically, they uphold the ethical order. As opposed to them, you have Indra. Now, Indra and Agni, that is fire, the same English word ignite. Always bear this in mind. When you say Agni, ignite comes to mind straight away in a living language. The maximum hymns of the Rigveda have been composed to these two. Indra, to me at least, was obviously a king who was so powerful that he got deified after death. And he had all the foibles of a modern day ruler. Drunkenness, wantonness, licentiousness, the works, violence, rapacity. And there are so many hymns devoted to him that one wonders how the ethical order would perhaps have been upheld at all, given the number of hymns to this gentleman as opposed to the great Asuras. It is from this that Zoroaster finally comes down to us and tells us But I wish now to overthrow this old order because I have seen with my mind's eye. Now again, interesting. The expression he used is just mind, just more. With my mind's eye, Almighty God, one creator God. So whereas the expression Asura or Ahura was always there in the Rigveda, Mazda was coined by him for the first time. There is no Mazda in the Rigveda. And this is the great advance that he makes. Because he says, I am the first to receive a revelation of things that a human being cannot otherwise be exposed to from this great creator God. And again the word Mazda is split into two words. Maz and Da. Maz, again you can go to the root, the ancient root, from which the English word majestic comes. Same thing. So majestic, great, and Da is creator. So Ahura therefore means the Lord, an old expression to signify somebody worthy of worship. Who is the great creator and creator of everything that exists. Now, having given you this short introduction, let me also give you a few timelines so that when we talk of Gatha and thereafter the Kasti prayer, it will be clear to you as to which language is used when and by whom. We go back now to the dynasties. So you had, as I told you, the first Vishnadanya, with which we are not directly concerned. Kayanian, with which we are directly concerned because the monarch was converted by Zoroaster, belonged to this dynasty. Achaemenian, the third. Now the Achaemenian is the dynasty which all of you are aware of. Begins with Cyrus II, who is Cyrus the Great dynasty. Incidentally, this monarch is also referred to in 6 books of the Bible, Old Testament, and is the only person other than a Jewish prophet who is called Anointed of the Lord. And the reason he is called Anointed of the Lord in the Old Testament is that when he conquered Babylon, not only did he give every citizen the right of free worship, that is the conquered people, but he actually told the Jews, not only can you go back to your mother country, but I will also, with my funds, from my treasury, rebuild the temple that Nebuchadnezzar has raised to the ground, which was the second time. Interestingly enough, this happened only in the reign of Darius. Cyrus comes and goes, Cambyses comes and goes, his son, and then Darius, who is a distant cousin, comes. Darius, we are told in the book of Ezra, looks for this decree and asks the Jews that if in fact there is a decree by a Persian that you must rebuild your temple with our funds, of course we are bound by it. It was ultimately found, and it is with funds from our treasury that second temple was built in the reign of Darius the Great, of which one of the outer walls happens to be the Wailing Wall at which Jews worship today. That wall itself is in 2 parts, if you look at it closely. The older part was constructed with our funds. The more recent part is part of Herod's great third temple, just before Christ came. So, going back to these dynasties, we have these great rulers. We have Cyrus, we have Cambyses, who was a little off his head, who overran Egypt. Then we have Darius the Great. We have his son Xerxes, and it's under Darius and Xerxes, really, that what I call the great schism takes place. Western culture and Western thought is basically Greco-Roman. Because we were defeated at the battles of Marathon, Thermopylae, Salamis, and Placia, all of which happened within 11 years. From 490 to 479 BC. Because we were so defeated, Persian culture somehow or the other was lost to the West completely. So this period is a period of crucial importance. The West, therefore, while adopting the Greco-Roman tradition, abjured the Persian. And it is under Darius and Xerxes that these events take place. Post-Xerxes, you have Artaxerxes, his son, called Longimanus, because one hand was joined up here. After him, you have Xerxes the second for a short while. Then you have a bastard king, Darius Mothus. Mothus means son of somebody who is illegitimate, like William the Locker, who was reasonably wrong. Then you have Artaxerxes II, the man who is thoughtful, Nariman. You have the great battle of Cunaxa in 400 BC, fought with his brother Cyrus the Younger, where he defeats him. And you have Artaxerxes III, Arsaces, and then finally our last emperor, that time Darius III, who gets conquered by Alexander. And with that, a dynasty which ruled for roughly 230 years comes to an end. So this dynasty won over. Then for a short while you have Greek schooling, Seleucid, under a general called Seleucus, left by Alexander. And from roughly 225 BC to around 24 AD, which is again a gigantic amount of years. How much is it? 400, 500. You have what is called the Parthian dynasty. Now, nothing much is known somehow about the Parthians, except that they were probably worshippers of Mitra, again the same Rigvedic god who Zoroaster overthrew and who came back in later Zoroastrian period. Because we find at least 6 kings were called Mithridates. But the interesting emperor in the Parthian dynasty from our point of view is Volgosis. Now, Volgosis was somebody who asked the Magi, who are the Persian priests, to gather together all the scattered remnants of the Zoroastrian texts at that time. This again was roughly the Christian era when Christ was born. And as a result, we had a second redaction of what is called the 21 Nusks. Now, a Nusk is only a compilation, and each compilation deals with different subjects. Like, for example, the Damdat Nusk, which is lost to us, dealt with creation, which has now become part of a Baghali text called the Buddhaism. The only Nusk left from this period is what is today called the Vendida, which was at that point called the Vidaiva Dat. That means law. Vidaiva means against, be against. Daivas who are considered demons who worship many gods. So literally it means the law which teaches you not to worship many gods. And because this Nusk has come down to us in its entirety, consisting of 19 chapters, it is treated with a great reverence by modern Parsis, and ceremonies are performed around it. Although I must tell you that short of chapter 1 and chapter 19, the rest is nothing but an ancient code of laws. It doesn't have much relevance today. So going back to Emperor Volgosis, it is this man who gets back what Alexander is supposed to have destroyed in Persepolis. Compiles 21 books, if you may put it that way, or libraries. And those 21 books continue now for another 500 or 600 years until the Arab invasion, when they are again lost to us. And then, as a result, in the 8th and 9th centuries AD, you have 2 brothers, Maradan Farooq and Zatsparam, who are Mohammed, who basically undertook the arduous task of summarizing the lost Nusks in what is called the Dinker. And there are some 18 books of the thinker, which only give us chapter headings basically, or summaries of what was lost to us in these verses. So we come back now to the Parthian period, which if you remember, is period now number 4. So we've had Vishnu, we've had Kayanian, we've had Achaemenian, which is Cyrus, and Parthian, which has had all these Mithridates emperors, and Volcosius brings all this back. Incidentally, as a matter of general interest, in 53 BC, Crassus was one of the triumvirs of the Roman Empire, and the triumvir who put down the slave revolt, the Spartacus, was defeated by a Parthian army. And this defeat was very important in history because the Romans never ever crossed the Euphrates after it. So the eastern border of the Euphrates always remained, which the Romans couldn't cross forward, and the immediate crossing was to the Persian Empire. So 4 great dynasties have come and gone now. The 5th with which we are directly concerned again is the Sasanian. Now the Sasanian begins in 224 AD under an emperor called Adeshar Papakan, that is ancestor Papak, and he happens to be a Zoroastrian priest. So he brings back the Zoroastrian religion, which was in a state of desuetude at that point, in complete force. And every emperor has an archbishop, so to speak, who is recorded by history to be a man who is very important because he essentially lays down what matters of religion for the community are. In Adeshar's time, it was a man called Kartir. And as I told you, in Shapur II's time, it was a man called Adarva. Now, this dynasty again had some 30 odd rulers that ruled for 425 years, from 224 till 651 AD. And we are concerned here directly with Shapur II, because it's under him that this great chief priest was the head Matus, so to speak, and was the man who compiled our Kasti prayer. A short background again on some of these rulers, only as a matter of interest before we are read. Adeshar Papakan ruled for about 20 years. His son Shapur I was one of the most victorious Persian kings. You see on a bas relief in Nakshe-Rustam in Persia even today, a very proud Shapur sitting on a charger with his hair waving in the wind, imperial crown on his head, and 3 Roman emperors under him, because in 260 AD, between in fact 240 and 260, he had smashed Roman army after Roman army. And the 3 emperors under him are, one is Valerian sitting in chains, who also died in his chains. A little behind him is a man called Gordian III, who again was around for about a year. And behind him is Julius Philippus, somebody called Philip the Arab, who was another Roman emperor. So you have this very proud Sasanian king sitting on a charger with these 3 Roman emperors under him. After him, and by the way with him, one more religion tried to assert itself, which is Manichaeism. And in our modern times, you must have heard of the Yazidis, this group that these radical forces are trying to exterminate. Apparently, like the Gathas, Albigensians, etc. in Europe, these Yazidis may well be a leftover of Manichaeism, because Prophet Mani was a late gentleman, believed in the synthesis of 3 faiths, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism and Christianity. And he took the polar opposites from Zoroastrianism, but then made them completely different. You had light opposing darkness. And whereas in Zoroastrianism everything is light on earth, and there is happiness on earth, everything on earth is darkness, and so on and so forth. Now it is this prophet who also was encouraged under Shah, but under one of his successors was put to death, thereafter second. So this had a short-lived existence here, but somehow or the other managed to spread to lands other than Persia. And Saint Augustine tells us in his Confessions, very great early Christian father, that he happened to be Manichaean till he was 20 years old, until he saw the light. Then you have a couple of emperors until you reach Shapur II. After Shapur II, again you have a number of emperors. The interesting ones are Yazdegerd I, who to the Zoroastrian orthodoxy was called the accursed, because he was somebody who was tolerant to other faiths. In fact, he married a Jewess as one of his wives. You have Yazdegerd II, who was his opposite, who had forced conversions in Armenia, as a result of which, the moment the Zoroastrian yoke was thrown off, they became Nestorian Christian again. And of course, you have the two great Khusrus. Khusru Anmoseravan, the first, was perhaps the most enlightened and greatest of the Sasanian kings. And his grandson Khusru Parvez being victorious. Why? Because the empire was at its largest extent under Khusru Parvez. He went all the way to Jerusalem in the west, came all the way to Punjab in the east, was up near the Caspian Sea, and then down near modern Arabia. So it was a very, very large extent of empire which he ruled. He is supposed to have got part of the Holy Cross on which Christ was crucified as well, which later was taken back by Heraclius. And with him really our dynasty comes to an end, because after him you have some 11 emperors, sons, grandsons, daughters, ending with poor Yazdegerd III, who ultimately falls to the Arab conquest in two great battles, Qadisiyah in 636 and Nahawan in 641. Now with this short excursus, let us go straight away to the Gatha and the Ashem prayers, because according to me, the building blocks of the entire Gathas rest upon this edifice. And it is important to know and understand thoroughly what these prayers are before we start getting into anything further. We begin with the Ashem prayer first. Now the Ashem prayer is a very simple prayer. And you have to remember there are one or two key words. The key word is first Ashem itself, and another key word is Ushta. The modern day Usha, the light of dawn, has something to do with it. Now, Asha is nothing but the Ritta of the Rig Veda. Now, Ritta is again something like the English word erect. They all come from the same root. When you are erect, you are straight. The path must be straight. So when you speak of Asha, remember the English word erect. It brings it to focus the meaning very sharply. So the idea is, it tells you that to be erect at all times, that is to be truthful, in short, at all times, is good. Ashem Bahu is good. Vahishtam Asti. It's the poet's way of telling you, not only is it good, I am re-emphasizing it. It's the highest, it's the best. Now Vahisht again, the modern word would be behest. Best in English. What is behest? Paradise. What is best? See, every time try and focus on some modern expression so that the meaning becomes clearer and clearer to you, both to you. So, don't forget the word Asha is erect. So, Ashem Bahu, truth is good. Vahistam, behestam, best it is. Ushta Asti, Asti is it is. Same as the English word. Asti, it is. Same thing. Ushta asti. Now ushta, as I told you, is light. Usha. What is usha? So it is telling you that light, happiness, as opposed to misery, darkness, it is ushta asti, ushta amman, same expression. This mental happiness, so to speak, illuminated minds, come to him, ammai, him, again. Yad asai, who for truth, asha is truth, does the highest truth again, vahishtai, best, asha. So, it's a very simple and beautiful prayer. What does it tell you? It only tells you that there is a direct link between going down the path of truth, as you see, living by, which alone will give you mental happiness, contentment, satisfaction. And the second part, which is really an inference from the last three words. Do it for its own sake. Don't do it because there is some reward awaiting you or because you are scared of anything. Do it because it's intrinsically correct to do. So you have a very simple and beautiful and profound prayer. There are three keywords here. Hashem, erect, truth, Usha, Ushta, happiness, and Yad Asai, for the sake of truth. With this, you come to the Gatha over here. Now, this is in three parts. The first is a reaffirmation of the Hashem movement. You must remember that. The second stresses good deeds. The third stresses charity. Now, how does it work? Gatha Ahu Vairyo. You remember? Ahu is a part of Ahura. What was Ahura? Lord. So, Gatha Ahu Vairyo. Just as a lord, some big person, could be a minister, is powerful. Vairyo means a man who wields power. Somebody like Indra in the Rigveda, not Mitra. So just as there is a lord right now on earth, equal to, let us say, a minister, powerful man, wields power. Atha Ratus, so does a Ratu. Now who's a Ratu? A Ratu is somebody who follows the path of truth. Asha, the chief. So it's a reaffirmation of Asha, the Hashem Bhautre. So you put the thing together, what does it mean? It means just as people are enamored by people in power, you should really be enamored by people who follow truth. They are the real McCoy, so to speak. And therefore, a Ratu. The two words here are Ahu and Ratu. Ahu is somebody who's like Indra, who wields power. A Ratu is somebody who lives by the path of truth and therefore can instruct others. A person who gets wise, we are told in the Gatha, by following this path and who can instruct others. So this is part one. A beautiful reaffirmation of the first prayer. The second part is Vangehush Dasda Manangaho. Mind. Vangehush again, like Vaishta, highest, best. Dasda is gifts. So gifts which are mental in nature. What they are, the Gathas will tell you. Will only come to him, and the key word here is Shautanana, who does good deeds, Shautanana. Angyaush, right now in this life, must die for love of God. This is part 2. So part 2 tells you what? If you do good deeds in this life for love of your Creator will bestow upon you gifts which are of elemental nature. Leave for the next time what these gifts are. Alright? And then the last part. Kshatrem cha aurai. Now, Kshatra is nothing short of the power of Almighty God, the creative force of Almighty God. So, Kshatrem cha aurai, that is of the Lord, this great force will be utilized to help you if you in turn help anybody in need, which are the following words. Trikupyo dadat vastarem. Now, a vastarem in the old days was a herdsman. This is an old ancient agricultural community. The very word Zarathustra means golden camel. Ustra is a camel. It's a very, very old rudimentary way of life. So the herdsman was the person who was the guy who was actually working, tilling the fields, etc. Taking his sheep and goats around. If the herdsman was in a position to gives something to anybody in need, trigu, another keyword, the Lord will utilize His great power to give to that herdsman as well. So, you put together the 3 parts now of Gatha Amrit. The first part, reaffirmation of the Ashem prayer. There are very powerful persons on earth. Don't emulate. Emulate only a person who follows truth. Part 1. Second, remember it is only by the doing of good deeds that you will be mentally happy. And third, it is only by giving to anybody in need. It's the widest. Charity doesn't consist only in the form of pecuniary benefits. Widest. When you give to persons in need, the Lord in turn will look after you and you. Now, with this prefatory or introductory lecture, therefore, I think I have covered a gigantic span. We covered a lot in history, covered a lot in terms of Avesta, and covered a lot in terms of basic prayer, etc. At this stage, I would like to pause and would like you people to participate. So please now feel free to ask whatever you want, your doubts, because it's only by this method that what is in fact sought to be imparted by me will get imparted. Please begin. Feel free to ask me. Yes. Little louder. There's no contradiction. Why? Because in the Hashem mode, when you do something for its own sake, the Lord will give you gifts which are mental in nature. It's only telling you that from your point of view, you must do it only for its own sake. It's not that you are doing it so that you get those gifts at all. Your point of view, you do it only so that you think it's right. You must first think it's right and therefore do. The consequence will be that a great power will give you something else. Yes. I'm sorry.
And your parents tell you, I'll give come first. The point is, as my father said, you have to come first for the pleasure of coming first. So this is the first time that
Nobody ever comes first for the pleasure of coming.
you do.
Actually, I can tell you from my experience. But
You get such satisfaction from doing that. And if you don't do that, the next time you see what is that. You are dissatisfied, not because you want that gift or that prize.
since this isn't a comparative religious class, I don't want to get into this. If I start getting into these things, we'll digress, enormously. No difficulty in getting into it, but yes. Answer is no. Now the reason why the answer is no is this.
What did she say? Question was, how did Zarathustra get his divine knowledge? Was the same way as in the Veda. The Veda, 10,000 years ago, where the descending souls and the ascending souls intermingled and the knowledge was transferred. Did Zarathustra get his divine knowledge?
No. You see, it's a very important question. The question brings into sharp focus the difference between revelation and what a human mind can attain on its own. It's very important. Zoroaster tells you very clearly that what he is telling you has been imparted to him by Bahumana. Now, Bahumana is nothing but an attribute, in Plato's words, the ideal of a good mind. And he says that this comes to him really through an outside force. So therefore, whatever he is telling you here is not what his mind is telling him. It is what an outside force is telling him. Very important, first. The difference between this outside force telling him and a human mind, however great it is, I don't think would be better brought out than by comparing a few of the beautiful hymns of the 10th mandala of the Rigveda and the Gathas. Now, in some of these hymns, there are human speculation because they don't know, they've not been told. One speculation is that there is somebody from outside who looks after all creatures, and they call him Prajapati. There's another speculation that the universe has been fashioned by a great architect, and they call him Vishwakarma. There is another which likens creation to a cosmic egg, Hiranyagarbha. There is a fourth which ultimately hits on the idea of something existing by itself, what we call a Swaram. And it says that somebody or something breathed on its own when there was neither something nor nothing. Very interesting. Now, all these are speculations by great sages. Maybe it is their own inner voices telling them, maybe it is voices from outside telling them. But the important difference between these speculations and what is stated here is that here there is no speculation. Here it says, this great creator God has come down to me, has told me that I am the be-all and end-all of everything. One. Second, told me why I am here. Third, told me where I am progressing to. Fourth, finally told me that there will be a stage when death will be removed, which is called Ameretat. And when death is removed, and when everybody is capable of peaceful coexistence with everybody else, there will be immortality. Now this is the great vision. And this great vision doesn't come, as he says, from my mind. I am the first, he says in 2 hymns, to have been revealed this from an almighty God, which is an outside source. Second, Zoroaster's revelation, so to speak, is exactly the Judeo-Christian Islamic tradition which follows. Now, in early Judaism, you had nothing like heaven, hell, you had some small place called Sheol. Nobody bothered about it. Post-exilic Judaism, when they were introduced, when they were influenced by Zoroastrian, they broke into three groups: Sadducees, Pharisees, and Essenes. The Pharisees believed in an afterlife because of what they were taught by the Magi. And then finally you have Jesus coming in again as a Jew, but as a complete reformist, who gives you the same identical concept of why we are here, where we are going, how we taste heaven or hell depending, and all souls day, which then leads to a resurrection. And finally, what the Quran tells you 600 years ago. So, not only is this revelation something which was the first in its time, but it has been repeatedly given by various others who claim to have been persons who saw God. So the difference between, and the Quran tells us, interestingly enough, that there is a difference between a Rasulullah and a Nabi. A Rasulullah is somebody who has had communion with Allah. A Nabi hasn't. All the seers of the Rigvedas are Nabi. Zoroaster is a Rasulullah, Muhammad is the last Rasul. Just as Zoroaster is the first, he is the last. You have got a message from his creator. How each one gets the message is again different. Zoroaster gets it through his own mind. Muhammad gets it through Archangel Gabriel. But the important part is the essence of what the afterlife consists of is identity. In all these ways. And you are also given by a subsequent hadith, which is what other commentators say about the Quran. That from the beginning of time there were 313 messengers, Zoroaster to Muhammad, and 311 in between. And up till the Quran there were some 1,24,000 odd Nabis who were holy. So thank you for the question, it's an important one. Yes.
Is it important to say the shame of your family? You do so.
It is very important to remind yourself. You see, one very interesting verse in the Gatha tells you that prayer is essential only to do good. It's a beautiful verse, we'll come to it. And if you pray every day, what does prayer give you? Prayer gives you serenity. Prayer gives you focus. Prayer gives you so many things, including the most important thing according to me, which is to know what you pray, so that you can translate it into doing something.
On the shame vow, when we were young, we were always given the translation that truth is the highest good.
Yes.
Now, as a child, you always thought that truth meant not telling lies. As you grow older, you realize that the truth covers aspects of creation, devotion, faith. Is there anything in the Gathas which give a wider definition of what truth really means?
Yes, there is. See, one very interesting verse again tells you that the very embodiment of truth, Asha, it's a very peculiar expression. Asha doth not disunite. Now, what is the meaning of doth not disunite? It means it is the only real binding force. It binds persons who are like and alike. And the Gathas tell you also another very important thing, that the positive aspect, if you may put it that way, of truth is more stressed than the negative. The negative is don't tell lies. The positive is live along the path of truth. It's a path. You have to traverse it every day. There are thorns on this path. And these thorns are going to prick you, sometimes hit you very hard. It is these pricks and hits which are likened to the test of molten metal through which every soul is to go. And better you do it now than face it after death. So the Gathas again tell you very clearly, the positive aspect of truth is facing up to obstacles, surmounting them, and thereafter spreading happiness. The very opening lines of Pushtavar Gatha are most beautiful. Pushta ammai yammai pushta kammai chit. Which means what? Happiness to him who gives happiness to whomsoever else. So the ultimate aim of this is spread light, not darkness, spread happiness, not misery, and do it by surmounting obstacles. Do it also by living by this path. Yes.
Say a word about the question that we are praying for now. Every time you pray, does it give you a certain protection, a certain psychic vision? Does it give you a certain psychic armor? Because those who see halo, I don't mean as a halo as concentrated energy. Those who see that, they see the different halos of different people. People pray and how they go. Tree pray, remember that we wash up. They clean the halos around us.
You are not told any of this in the Gathas.
Where does this come from?
No, it can come from so many sources. It can come again from Nabis as opposed to Rasulullah. It can come from people who have different experiences. You are not given any of this here. This is a very simple, down to earth, but very difficult philosophy to put into practice. And the four mental gifts, because this is where you come to Vakyams, Dastam, what are these gifts? You are told there are four of them. Devishi, Uttayiti, Purvatat, and Amerikat. Two when you live, two after you die. Now what is Devishi? Devishi is the strength, the character that you will receive as a result of living by the path of truth. You will be able to face anything. Uttayiti, your entire life will take on a different meaning. It's almost as if you will be born again. These are the two mental gifts given. Now, if you are born again, you will be born again in many ways, one of which is what you said. And after you die, it is when you are able to coexist peacefully with somebody else that you become who? Whole. And only when you become whole will death be removed. So these are the four gifts. Yes.
The path of truth that you were talking about is as you see it, personally. So does that mean that it's subjective or objectively equal to be subjective to others?
Yes, it could, because, see, don't forget one other very important thing. Truth as you see it is conditioned by other things, such as non-violence. That's very important. When I come to the Kasti prayer, which I am about to come to, one of the most important things is in the Jasme Avange Mazda prayer, which is Praspayo Kedra, Nidha Snaitisha. What is a Snaitisha? A sword. What is Nidha? Put it back. Never use it. So, the truth as you see it doesn't mean that it gives you license to be a fanatic and be violent with others. So, what is important is, as I told you in the very beginning, these two fundamental prayers are building blocks of what is coming. You must first understand the building blocks, and then what comes gives you a complete perception of what then comes. See, the Vendita, as I told you, is heavier because it's one out of the 21 compilations of the Emperor Volgosis, 2000 years ago, which continues to exist in its entirety. All the rest have been destroyed. So therefore, because it is this compilation, it is given great resonance by the Parsis. In essence, the first Fargat, which is chapter 1, speaks of the 16 different regions of the world, and also speaks of a Vara, which is very interesting, happens only in our faith, as opposed to Noah's Ark. Now you have the great flood in every other ancient civilization. In ours, in the time of the king of the reign of King Jamshed, you had probably an ice age, and because of that ice age, instead of water engulfing, people went underground into Avara, and everybody was saved because King Jamshed took them down into this massive underground camp, which perhaps could be in a place called Berikulu in Turkey today. Right? So you are told about these things in Fargat 1. Fargat 19, the last, you are told about various temptations of the Prophet. But short of these two things, between 2 to 18, you have an ancient code of law, fundamentally criminal. If you kill an otter, you get 80 stripes. If you kill a dog, you get hanged, etc., etc. If you touch a corpse, not only will you get flayed, but you will have to undergo tremendous purification and then be flayed, etc. Most of this does not seem to have much relevance to it. But the reverence according to this one nas is because it happens to come down to us intact.
Therefore, it got translated into all sorts of rituals that.
Ritual again is a different part. You want to know, interestingly enough, the Kasti prayer itself has an extract from the Vedanta. After Kamna Mazda, there is another Gathic verse. And then that Nasai Daivi Duksh part is from the Vedanta. And that part, which is taken from chapter 6, if I remember right, of the Vedanta, is only this, that when anything comes to afflict you, we want that affliction to disappear. That's all, simple. And disappear where? In the north. Why in the north? Because in Persia, everything cold and dark was in the north. Had you been in Australia, it would have been in the south.
So, the 21, that, I mean, after which only the Vedanta survived, then how come the Gatha survived? And how much of the Gatha survived?
Yeah, very good question again. See, the Gathas are 5 in number. All of you know that, right? The first is called the Gatha Aunavaiti. Now, I don't know why it's called Aunavaiti. Because the other 4 Gathas are so called only because of their opening words. Ustavati because the first word is Usta. Spentamaiti because the first word is Spenta. But the first word here is not Auna. In any case, that's a conundrum to me. The other 4 are so called because of their opening words. They don't signify much. But what is important is that there was no written language at the time. Because there was no written language, you had to, if you wanted to actually, if you wanted something to pass down from generation to generation, you had to compose it in the form of poetry. So what was done was, you have the Aunavaiti, which is a compilation of certain hymns, put into 7 chapters, all of which follow a particular meter from the poetical point of view. That's why they're bunched together. The second Ustavati, different meter, again bunched together. Specta, mind you, a completely different meter bunched together. Then one standalone Bhogshatra, and the last standalone, which is really not a Gatha in the sense that it cannot be ascribed to Prophet Zoroaster. It happens only after he dies. So, Gatha 1, Gatha 2, Gatha 3, Gatha 4 are believed by us to have been composed by the Prophet himself. Composed in poetical form. Handed down from generation to generation only when they conned it by rote, not written. And written perhaps, depending on when he lived, thousands of years after. And because it is widely disseminated among so many people, it has come down exactly as it is. 1.
Not good.
2. How do we know it's come down as it is? The last Gatha has plenty of interpolation. You can make up straight up.
Sorry,
The
get that
Yasna,
last bit.
the last Gatha has lots of interpolations. Other people have shoved things into. That's possible with the later ejasti because it no longer follows meter, no longer is in the form of 12. So, at least Gathas 1 to 4 have come down intact. And when you follow a Rigvedic Sanskrit dictionary, their meaning tells you they have come down intact. Because there is no stronger test than the content. The content tells you, yes, they have come down. Where the content does not have any of the old gods, goddesses, etc. who creep back. There is no Mitra, there is no Varun, there is no home. In fact, you are told that things like the home cult are like this. This is a strong word, Uttar. That there are false priests who are fascinating people by cults like this. Capture. So the content then confirms that it has come down exactly as it is. And what is interesting is the prophet is a man clearly seeking the truth all the time. And is extremely humble, you see. He comes to as an extremely humble human being. He also asks God, look, I am your appointed designate, but am I on the right path? Please tell me. I don't know whether I am on the right path. So, fortunately for us, because there is this oral tradition, because it's in poetical form, it has come down to us more or less as it was. Now, whether it's all that he said or whether it's part of what he said.
Of the Nash?
No, what happened with the Nasks is apparently there were these compilations dealing with different things, astrology, astronomy, medicine, all sorts, creation. When Alexander came, apparently in a fit, when he was in a drunken stupor, he was reminded by a courtesan called Thais, Athenian courtesan, that Darius had put Athens to torch in 490 BC. Now see this massive city and see this huge empire do the same thing as well. Drunken fit, he put it to torch, and apparently some 12,000 odd ox skins on which all this was written were also burned. As a result of which you had the first loss, so to speak. Put together again by Volvos, again second loss after the Arabs came and everything scattered. Just one second.
So the Bundaish is also somewhat like the Bundaish.
Yes.
Where is that falling?
It's a Pahlavi text dealing with creation
At what stage?
from the beginning.
That came.
Creation from the beginning. That's a much later work.
That was saved.
But yes, that's the. But whether it reflects what was in the Damdat Nask, not certain. Damdat Nask is also dealing with creation. God knows what it dealt with apart from what the Buddha says.
So it was made based on that, but not sure how it was.
No. Sorry.
When we talk about creation or Mahavira or following the heart of truth, does it also talk about explaining our karma so that we can live a better life?
You see, the concept of karma, I would ask you not to bring in here. Karma goes with reincarnation. Reincarnation has no part in the Gathas. Very clear. Doesn't say a word about reincarnation. Even though I will show you verses where some priests have tried to find reincarnation. So you keep all your other concepts apart. It's very important for you to keep it and look at this as it is. First, understand it for what it is, then, bring in what you already know. It's very important to keep everything aside first. Understand this first for what it is. Don't clutter your mind with what is already there. No, it's important to tell you at the outset also. You see, karma is a very simple doctrine. The doctrine is there in virtually every living religion, except for maybe the Charvak school or some such thing. As you sow, so shall you reap. Simple. As you sow, so shall you reap is there everywhere, most so here. But not karma in that sense. As you sow, so shall you reap, yes. How you will reap is completely different. How you will reap. is completely different here as opposed to what the Jains say, as opposed to what the Buddhists say, as opposed to what others say. What this says you must understand for yourself.
Why do they say that see, these are both very powerful prayers in and of themselves. So I know that in times of trouble, instinctively I'll start saying Gatha, non-stop basically. Yeah. But then when a soul is passing at the time of death, you're supposed to keep saying Ashish over there, yo, why is that? What is it in Ashish that will help the soul cross from here to
According to me, nothing. You ask me personally, nothing.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that that's the...
Nothing. Now, what priestly practices are over the centuries is no part of this law. Right? There are many things which may have good in them, which may have bad in them, we don't know. It is important for me only to impart to you what according to me Prophet Zohar says. Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing less. Now why somebody should whisper Hashem going to somebody's ear is no part of this lecture.
And what is the import of saying these prayers aloud? Is there any import to that?
The import is only this, that it tells you what to do. You see, one is it's for your own peace of mind. Put it that way. Perhaps get peace of mind by chanting something aloud. Perhaps. But the idea is what the Gathas tell. Grant me goodness as a reward for praying. There's a direct path in this. Idea is fundamentally to understand what you pray so that you can translate it into everyday life. Very important.
Apart from
Just one second.
prayer, are there any other prayer defined or
I'm sorry, I'm not.
apart from Athavaryo or Shemmo, Kasti prayer,
Yeah.
are there any other prayers talked of in the Gathas or mentioned?
Gathas don't speak of any prayer. It's the other way around. The Gathas are the oldest.
Yeah.
The Kasti prayer happens to take two verses from the Gathas centuries later. It's the other way around, completely. Adarban Maraspan lives between 309 and 379 AD, which is Shapo's name. This was composed any time before 1000 BC. You get the timeline?
So it is only Athavaryo and Shemmo which can be traced back directly to the
Again, they are no part of the Gathas. It's interesting. Yatha is not a prayer in any of these 200 odd hymns. Neither is the Hashem. But they were probably considered so fundamental and they've come down to us as the two fundamental that they were obviously uttered by the Prophet himself. They are not part of the Gathas. You see, Yenke Hatam is first and foremost a Pazan prayer. So it is again 3,000 years after these two prayers. It has its genesis, however, in the Ailiyaman Isho prayer, which is Yasna 54.1, which will come to it. So it is a completely different prayer and it comes centuries and centuries after.
This follows that you have to have the knowledge of the Gathas. You should ideally have the knowledge of the Gathas and practice that knowledge rather than relying on the power of saying and reciting these prayers.
You see, the power of saying and reciting may be good for you individually. May be good for you individually. Right? But the message that comes across is very clearly the doing of good things. Because in the very verse, it's a very beautiful verse. When you ask this question, turn to it straight away. Come first to chapter 45. All of you have got 45 at page 229. This is the third chapter of the second Gatha. The verse in particular is verse 8, which you will find at 236. 236. It's at the bottom. You got it? Now let me read the translation immediately after the Avesta slowly. Him will I seek to turn with hymns of adoration. For now verily I have seen him with my soul's eye. As I told you, Jasmaini Vyagarisam. You will find that in the second line, the Avesta. Temnes Tauta is Nemannaho, A Vyagarasu. Nuzi Jasmaini Vyagarisam. Got it? Right? Now, when he sees the Almighty with his mind's eye, what is the first thing he is told? Good thought, deed, and word. This is very important. Your humatta, hutta, uvasta come from here. Good thought, deed, and word. Having first realized through Asha. Now, therefore, what's he telling you? When you live by the path of truth, what is the path of truth? Good thoughts, good words. Having done this, I have been favored with my mind's eye seeing the Almighty. Therefore, let us lay down our devotion before Him. In Nariman, which, as I told you earlier, is our concept of heaven. So you see, what is interesting here is that you are told specifically, look, when you follow the path of Asha, when you think good, translate it into good words and translate it into good deeds, only then will you get this great result, and only then will you progress. In fact, at this stage also a very lovely saying of the great Dastur Ladarban Marasman again, who is the guy who, as you know, formulated our Dastur prayer. He put it so beautifully when he said, God may give you wisdom, but unless it translates itself into courage as well, what's the point? So wisdom must go with courage. He may give you intelligence, but what's the point again? Unless that intelligence is far-seeing and not short-sighted. Third is what is in this verse. What's the point of a good thought unless it is translated into a good deed? And fourth, and what is most important, you may have enormous wealth. No point unless you are generous. So this again is stated so beautifully by the man who formulated this concept. Another very interesting thing he tells us is, never sit in a seat where you are liable to be unseated later. He tells people like me, when you speak, don't be a bore. Interesting, very interesting, practical admonition. And another thing, he said, tell you how beautifully you view half a glass, the famous thing. Do you look at the water or do you look at what is empty? Now he tells you, the moment something bad befalls you, think that it's a great thing that has happened. Something worse could have befallen you. For example, in the entire armory of the devil, one more arm has gone. And things of that nature. So, this is all wisdom literature which has been devised by our priest, which is also written and which should be separately read.
We have the concept of devil.
Sorry?
You mentioned devil. We have the concept of devil.
You will find, interestingly enough, in the Gathas there is no devil. In the Gathas you have one supreme, all-powerful God. He at the beginning of time creates two spirits, which are two minds, and gives them the power of choice. This is all allegorical. One chooses good, one chooses bad. So the one who chooses good is called Spenta Man. Spenta, the spirit that chose correctly. The one which chose badly is called Angra. The English word anger. Anger is one of the evils spoken of constantly. Now, interestingly enough, again, you will find both concepts in the Dasti prayer. You will find Angra Menu specifically spoken of in the Avestan part, And Aryaman, the full-grown devil, spoken of in the Auravasta Paraya. Both.
But not in
Gathas does not have any Aryaman. There is no embodiment of evil. There is one supreme, all-great God who has given the power of choice to persons like us. You choose badly, you are called a villain. But interestingly enough, the embodiment of evil, who is Aryaman, is the very next word after Auravasta God. Aryaman, Nariman. Yes, you are both.
I have some questions.
Try to get my story.
On the word? Gatha is nothing, it means just as. Gatha is meaningless, don't focus on it at all. Gatha, from the point of view of your understanding, Gatha is meaningless. Just as, that's all.
The second thing is, people always say three Gatha and two Asher. So what is the...
Again, no part of this lecture. It's very important to stay away from things which are outside. No part of this lecture.
Is there a manner and a time, etc. to say these prayers, or when we have to say it, said in any form, when to say this?
None whatsoever. Yes.
Trying to get the dates right. If we take writing from around 3000 BC or so, 2500 Acadian uniform, and Zarathustra's around 1000.
Nobody knows.
So, but yet none of it are recorded. I mean, writing was
Nobody, see, the first problem is nobody knows. We must face it and say nobody in fact knows. You can only say yes before 500 BC. Now when we don't know. Nobody has the slightest idea. The Greeks in 300 BC said he lived 6,000 years before, so we don't know. That would put him way before the Rig Veda has been written, which is not correct again. Unless the Rig Veda is wrongly dated. You don't know.
Should the Vedita be prayed or should it just be something that's read and absorbed and understood?
Again, entirely up to you.
I have a further question.
Yeah.
Your comment on why priests always say that once a relative passes away, the one they touch off, or this one was this one.
No part of this lecture series, sorry. No part. See, I don't want to digress into a moment to get into this. That goes for us.
To the Kemna?
Sorry?
Why would we go on to the Kasti prayer now?
Yes, sure. Have you had enough for today or you want me to do the Kasti prayer as well?
And she's done no wrong. And I believe that we should all follow her. There's no negative emotion.
How do you know?
She's not spoken a single word.
How do you know that? You're probably filled with negative emotion. I know.
But nobody knows which one.
Nobody.
And all the time I've been told it's the work of anyone.
Anyway, so that again is totally out. Please understand. This is neither a comparative religious class nor is this meant as, you know, as something where your personal problems are going to be sorted out by me. I'm not here
So
for
is
that
there any
purpose.
mention of people with disabilities?
No, be careful. I am not here for that purpose. I am here to impart to you what is stated by Prophet Zoroaster according to me, after which if it helps you, thank God. Now, may I progress because otherwise, you know, yes. You people are ready for the Kasti prayer. This again will require a lot of concentration. You have Kemna Mazda first. Turn straight away to Yasnaha 46.7 because that is Kemna. Yeah. 46.7 at page 246. Please remember when you study this book, the Avnaveti Gatha is from 28 up till 34. Ustavati, the second of which this part, the chapter is a part, begins with 43 and this is the last chapter. 43, 44, 45, 46. Okay. I'm sorry. No, it is relevant only to find it and to know what you are doing. See 46.7. Now, you will find the first part of Kirna Mazda as a Gathic verse which is directly lifted. Correct? Up to Tamai Dastavam Dainaya Pravaucha. Correct? What does it mean? I'll read the English translation first and then attempt to explain. Whom Mazda has now appointed protector over one life. When the follower of Arjun sets himself against me with violence, other than fire and mind, through the working of these two, thy eternal law is fulfilled. This sacred law do thou clearly declare to me for my inner self. Now, see, the first thing you have to understand here is the meaning of a few Gathic words. Kem na, the word na is man. Please make a note. Man. Any. So you are talking of a human being. It's very important. So which human being is going to protect me when I am threatened with violence? The answer is no human being. No human being. Only two things will protect me, myself, that is my own mind, and fire, which is the symbol of truth. Gatha, you will find in the Gathas, is a living symbol of what is truthful. Now, why there are so many reasons? It points upwards, it is light as opposed to darkness, it burns up evil, etc., etc. So, all that this prayer is telling you is, which man will look after me when I am in distress and somebody is jumping on me with violence? Answer is nobody except you yourself, through your own mind and through fire, which is by following the path of truth. Alright? Please declare this to me very clearly, is the last sentence. So interestingly enough, Adarbad Maraspan picks this up and then goes to the question chapter. Now, 2 chapters before this, Zoroaster is asking questions constantly. And in the question chapter, there is somebody appointed to protect you. And that somebody is a Ratu. Ratu. Gatha, Ahuvayu, Atha, Ratus. Ratu. Right. Now come to 44.16. For the second part. Page 224.
Page what?
224. Now you will notice that the first line is missing in the Kamna Mantapya. Tattva Peresa Eresma Bhavchaura. That's the first line, the question asked by Zoroaster in every one of the verses of this chapter. That first line only means, this do I ask thee, tell me truly. Therefore, this is the question chapter. Zoroaster's questioning God. So, Adarbad Maraspan left this out because it didn't gel with the first part. Carries on with the next part. K Valetrenja. Correct? Alright? And you come up to Vasi combined cheat, which is the second part of Yamnaman. Now here again, there is the same thought as in Kemnaman. Who is going to be protector over me when I am threatened with violence then? So here again it says, who is going to protect me, who is going to teach me? And the answer that is given is that a Ratu will teach me. You will find the word Ratum in the third line in the Avesta. Chitra Moy Da Maun Bis Ratum Chis. Got it? And then along with this, what you are also told is that Ratu will have to exercise his conscience. The word Sarosh comes from the Rigvedic word Su. Su means to hear from within. To hear from within. You know? The expression Sruti as opposed to Smriti, what is remembered. So what has been heard and given from generation to generation. Here, Sarosh comes from the word Sru, that is to hear from within your conscience. So, the second part only tells you that as the first part has said, rely on yourself, the second part seems to be a question of Honesty. And the question again takes you back to the first part, because according to me, the question is answered in the first part. It's the other way around. So perhaps this should have come first and that should have come second. Perhaps. But the answer is again very clear. The answer is a Ratu will help me. Who is a Ratu? Again, the man who lives by the path. The man who lives by the path of truth. So these are reasonably obscure verses. I don't know frankly why they were put up. But the important thing that comes through is that the idea of developing your own strength and character seems to be uppermost, which is through following Ashram. And then after this, you have that extract from the Vandana, which frankly in today's world doesn't contain much meaning, because it's only telling you utterly perish, utterly go those who, wish to destroy God's good creation, Ma Merit Chinese. And that after that extract from the Vandana, then again comes one line picked up from the Spectrum in Gatha, 49.10. Come here, to page 286. Line 3 in the other side. Got it? Nemascha ya admeti sisacha. Everybody got it?
Yes.
You remember that's the last part of the Karnam of the man. Right? This line is picked up. What does Nemascha mean? Nemascha is the same as Nammanu, Kusantima, to be humble. Keep trying to find, some word which has meaning here. You'll get the essence later. Nammanu. So with humility, Isa is wish, desire. Will I become right-minded, mighty, right? Will I think correctly? So what does this line mean in short? It is only when you are humble and you wish to think correctly that you will progress. Alright, so this is your first lesson in the Gatha. One verse picked up, the second verse, which ought according to me have been put first, is put second, with one line missed out, and then one line picked up for me. To make the compilation of what your Kemnamanta prayer is, with that little bit of Avesta from Vandana.
So the Sabra and Kasti only originated at this time.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows that.
There's a lot else. It's only a beginning, tentative small beginning.
Isn't that too simplistic?
No, it's not.
Seek greater and unexplained.
It's not after you ask the question after the cause of it. Just now you've hardly begun. Don't forget, you will keep progressing because there's a hell of a lot in this which has to be imparted, which has been touched here. We are only on the cusp, not even begun with this. Okay, so this is Kevnamasta. Avramasta Khodai now is in the spoken language of the day, it's Sasanian time. So it's like English or Gujarati today. It's in a different language altogether. This was dead at that point of time. Kevnamasta, verse 2, the Avesta part of the Vandida and Namascha was all dead. It was in a dead language in the day of Anandman Manasman. So whether most people understood it, didn't understand it, God alone knows. This part is the part which was in English, Gujarati, etc., which people understood immediately. Now, the Avramasta Khodai prayer is Anandman Manasman zone. And beautifully, it kind of tells you about 11 types of evils which are specifically fleshed out, which one should stay away from. Now the first thing it tells you is Avramasta Khodai, which is God. Khodai is only an affirmation of God again. Avramasta Khodai. Nariman is now the full-blown devil who opposes God. So don't be like the full-blown devil who opposes God. Nariman. Daivan. Persons who believe in more gods than one. Trujan. Liars. Jaduan answers itself. Darvandan is repeated twice, interestingly enough. Why? Because he's at pains to tell you that if you leave the path of the faith, you will be rudderless. A Darvan is a person who has left the faith. Darvandan. Then you have Gunegaran, sinner. Ashmogan, person with scant respect for Asha, truth. The key words are Kikan, Karefan. Kikan and Karefana being willfully blind, willfully deaf, which are Gatha. They appear here in the verses. And he tells you that that is a terrible form of evil. You see something bad going on, don't shut your eyes to it. You hear something bad going on, don't shut your ears to it. Sastara, very interesting. A tyrant. A person who's tyrannous. And then again, Darvandan repeated. So, it is telling you, fleshing out for you what evil is. And telling you that all these 11 types of evils try and be far away from. And the second part of the prayer is only re-emphasizing the verse I read. That for all my sins, I genuinely repent and I genuinely wish to replace them with good thought, good work. Manashni, Gavashni, Punashni. The Pallavi equivalent of the Avesta. So this second part is the part which Anandman Manasman tells you for himself in the spoken language of the day. Very easy to understand, very easy to implement, and not so easy to implement when it comes to shutting your ears and shutting your eyes. And then you come to the last part, which is again in Avesta. So please remember, Kevnamasta, verse 1, directly Gathic Avesta. Verse 2, K Varithrenja, again Gathic Avesta. Patanokta Vishyantan Paidi, Vendida. Avesta, not Gathic Avesta, another language. Namaschaya, Adventis is back to Gatha. Avramasta Khodai, Pallavi, completely different language. then the last part of this you will find Shnautra Uravasta, which means glory to God. Angra Mainush, as opposed to Ariman. So that's why I said both concepts are here. Full grown devil as opposed to the Mainu which chose wrong. Haitya Varstam, Yat Varsna, Farshostam and Stavnyashe. That only means, the last part only means that all good basically comes from the Lord. And this everybody understands. Everybody who has a reasonable intelligence understands. So, again you will find this constant moving in and out of languages. You move from Gathic Avestan to Avestan in the first, then you come to the spoken language of the day, then you go back to Gathic Avestan. And in the confession of the faith, you go back to Avestan. Jasame Avange Mazda means come to my aid, come to my help, God. And then you confess the faith for yourself. Mazda Yasno Apni, I am a follower of Mazda Yasno, which means the religion as propounded by Zarathustra. Mazda Yasno, Zarathustra. And then all it tells you is again, I obey the good word, the good thought, the good deed, etc. And the 4 key words are very beautiful. So you have Mazdas, Omni, Mazdas, Zarathustra. Pravarana, Astvatascha, Pravaritascha, Astvavattam, Astvavattam Vacho, thought word, Astvavattam Shur, Astvadainam Mangu, that's the good faith as taught by Zarathustra. Then you have these concepts of Khait Vadata Ashamni. Fraspayokhedram first. Fraspayokhedram means what? That you are willing to give of yourself. You are willing to give of yourself, sacrifice. Nidhas Naitisha, non-violence. Put the sword back into its scabbard. Never use it. Khait Vadata, again giving of the self. And Ashamning following the path of it. And ended again by saying, all good emanates only from Almighty God. Never forget this. And therefore I am a follower of this faith. In brief, that is the Kasti plan. Now, with this, I think we'll end today. And from next week onwards, we can actually start with the Gathas. I will proceed in my own way and try and tell you first about the 2 great sermons which Zoroaster addressed, which are chapters by So, we deal with the sermons, we deal with the 4th Gatha, which encapsulates most of the key concepts. After which, then we'll go conceptual. Moral choice, read all the hymns together. God, read the hymns together. Judgment, what happens to the soul after death, resurrection, etc. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One question.
Yes.
All good candidates of the God.
Yes.
As opposed to practice more for its own benefit.
No, they are not choice will be a puppet. Yes.
Yeah. Now, we've always known prayer as something which has been taught to us. But very rarely have been told that these are in different languages. How have you been able to identify that these are different languages in various
Exactly as I identify English from Gujarat. No different. They are completely different. Pallavi and Avesta. I'm sorry. By myself, yes. Thank you. Okay, one last question.
Yeah.
You read for yourself the Kevna Mazda prayer alone. in chapter 30 and chapter 45.
Chapter 45.
Yes. So if you want it, it's actually a good question because you can read for yourselves chapter 30 and chapter 45. Because these are the two sermons that Zoroaster is giving a crowd.
Can you tell us how to identify chapters?
Very simple. You see, you begin with 28. You see the beginning. See the top. 28.1. You carry on 28, 29, 30. Then it will end at 34. From 35 you jump to 43 because that's the next guy.
Forty-five.
45. I don't know about you, but I'm well.
Very interesting.
Can I don't know about you, but I'm well. Now it will get interesting.